Well, good morning, everybody. And as we start off today's report, one of the big things I'll be thinking about is how much longer this very large area in the midsection of the United States is going to continue to see below normal precipitation. It's certainly affected harvest weather. It's increased the risk of field fires. The air is extremely dusty in this area just due to harvest, which is normal. We have had a few places that have picked up some better rains, but this was really back about 2 weeks ago. I'm talking about the rains that came into parts of central Kansas, critical for the winter wheat crop. But surrounding that area, it has been quite dry. I also just linked in today's report, for those of you that missed it last night, the information on the Mississippi watershed and all of its tributaries. So if you want to go and look at the river gauge depth to understand some of the issues we're seeing with barge traffic, I wanted you to have that as well. But we can also see that while we've seen a lot of moisture moving through the Four Corner states, and that system that rolled through this past week and really increased the rainfall in parts of Wyoming and Montana, things have been quite dry in parts of the Pacific Northwest in a very narrow corridor right in through here. And much of the rainfall you've got in this area was from about 2 weeks ago from that cutoff low. Of course, Ian dominated the pattern over parts of the eastern United States, where we're going to continue to see more showers today in the mid-Atlantic as the steering current really can't pull Ian too far away from the coast. I'll show you that in a moment. But I would like to just look at some satellite imagery. I'm going to start off in the northwest. I'm going to take you back to last night, because we continue to see in the Cascades here through the Willamette Valley, very near it, some of the wildfire smoke. Some of the fires still going in this area. You can tell, though, just by the way the smoke plumes are spreading, how kind of static the flow is over this area. And that's largely due to a very significant ridge that's taking shape here. And that's going to be a kind of a main story going forward. The low that is finally going to be pulling this morning into parts of South Dakota, you saw it last night here in parts of Montana and Wyoming, is again starved for moisture. It's going to bring in some showers to parts of the Midwest, but not too much. So if we look at the rest of the country, this is just as sun was rising this morning. This again is the cloud shield with the extratropical transition of Hurricane Ian. Now just again, an extratropical low, but the system that the sun is just rising over this morning, see where the low is here in South Dakota, that's going to be the system that drags the front through the midsection of the country. But it's not going to deliver much rainfall, and that is where we are continuing to see very dry conditions. So this is the latest 16-inch or 40-centimeter soil moisture map, and it just reflects how very dry we are in the midsection of the United States. So the big question I kind of proposed last night, and we're going to continue to investigate, is when do we break through this pattern, and when does it start to shift over toward wetter? Okay, in the near term, the answer is not right now. So here's that front passing through the midsection of the country today, while Ian still delivers more showers to parts of like Maryland, Delaware, even getting up to New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and coastal Virginia. And you see that rain just pulling through there as Ian leaves, and the frontal boundary, which really just attempts to bring in some showers. Really what this is going to do is knock down some of the dust and maybe knock you out of the field for half a day or so with some of the rain that's coming through parts of Iowa. Then as we get here into Wednesday, this is Wednesday night, pulling through the day on Thursday, this will be the next big event. It's that high pressure cell right there sinking down that's going to deliver quite a bit of cold air and a pretty extensive frost that it's even gone further to the south. We'll look at that in a second. But the main setup for this pattern is right here. This is on the 7th of this week. And this cutoff low, I think, is going to dominate the jet stream pattern for much of the end of this week into next weekend, into middle of next week. And what it's going to do is it's going to break the jet stream off into kind of two branches. There's this one and the one that runs over the north like that. So it's going to allow for cold air to kind of run down like this. It's also going to push systems along the Rocky Mountains late next week. And there's a big system we're going to have to watch. But the depth of this trough kind of tells us where that colder air is going to be. But given the flows out of the northwest, this is not the right setup to deliver a whole lot of rainfall. So your next 7 days is shown here. You have the Ian, the system coming out of South Dakota, going through Ontario and Quebec, where we could get some heavier rains, and then some snow here the farther north you get. And then because there's high pressure in this area, we're still pulling on some moisture here coming through the Four Corner states. From there, I would just like to show you quickly the system I'm keeping an eye on again. It's that one that's next week. So we've already seen through here. That's the high pressure cell that comes diving down. Out ahead of it, some showers in New England and some scattered showers in the Four Corner states. But this is the source of that really cold air. And then not a whole lot else going on through the weekend. Now the system I'm keeping an eye on is next Tuesday, Wednesday. See it coming down the Rocky Mountains there into Montana. Could put some snow in the mountains and could deliver another shot at colder air and maybe pull on some moisture. You see the big difference between the previous system, the one that's going through right now, And this one is that the high pressure extends all the way down here. So that helps to pull that moisture out, which allows the front to interact with something. And that's why we're seeing better chances of rain. But overall, when you take a look at this, this is your next 10 days, looking at the probability of getting a ½ inch of rain or less. We're dry where we need to be dry. This needs to start the cleanup efforts here, or continue the cleanup efforts from Ian. It's going to be dry throughout much of the Cotton Belt, Corn Belt, and throughout the West. The only system I'm watching is midweek next week coming right here on the spine of the Rockies. Now let's turn our attention to temperatures and the latest frost forecast. The biggest changes are we're now seeing better chances of it getting farther to the south, like down here in I-70 in Illinois, and then right here through much of Kentucky now is under this, and of course up against the Appalachian Mountains. The high temperature forecast and anomalies, which are shaded, looks like this. So broad warmth tomorrow. I'm actually going to head up to Fargo tonight, but I will leave before that arrives on Thursday. So you see the much colder air coming in. It's going to chase me all the way back home to Illinois, where by Friday and Saturday, much colder air will be here. Now, during this entire time period, we're going to have much warmer air to the west, and that's because that larger ridge, which is staying in place through early next week because of the cutoff low that's in the Gulf of Alaska. So how long does all that last? Well, let's look at the latest 5-day sliding window of temperature anomalies going out here through the middle of October. Now you see more warmer days than cooler days, but the temperature pattern is quite volatile. It's just saying that on average we're going to see a bit more warmer conditions than cooler until we get to about the middle of the month. Let's call it the 15th through the 19th. And that is the time period over which I think the Pacific jet is going to start its extension. It's going to respond to the changes in La Niña, which is quite strong right now. And we're going to see more systems coming into the northwestern region across the United States. I just want to show you what I showed you in last night's in-depth video. This is the 16th of October through the 16th of November. And you notice we've lost that large dry signal in the midsection of the country. The precip totals have increased in the Pacific Northwest. And a very La Niña-like move in the models. We're staying drier from Texas through the mid-Atlantic. That's very characteristic of a fall La Niña, while the pattern starts to pick up with more cold air intrusions coming through. The last thing I'm going to bring up is the same La Niña is influencing the pattern in South America. And the models have really doubled down on the risk of being dry in Argentina and in parts of southern Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay, while the very fast planting should continue in parts of central and northern Brazil as the rains are continued to be forecast to be above normal. So these are the things we're going to be watching this week, and I'll report back again tomorrow morning. Thanks.